दिनकरान्वयतिलकं दिव्यगायधिसूतसवन वनरचितसुबाहुमुखवधम् अहल्यापावनम् अनघमीषजापभङ्गम् जनकसुतप्राणेशो घनकुपितभृगुराम गर्वहरमितसाकेतं भावयामि रघुरामं भव्यसुगुणरामं भावयामि रघुरामं. Let me meditate upon the great incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead called Ram. That Ram who, upon hearing the words of Vishwamitra, went along with him on the advice of his father to the forests, killed Tataka, killed Subahu, drove away Maricha, gave Shapa Vimochan, redemption of the curse from the sin given by Gautam to Ahalya, handled the bow and married Sita. This is the information from the little song that I had sung by a great king who composed a song in Sanskrit centuries back in Kerala. So what we get from this particular incident is the importance of sage Vishwamitra. There was a king called Gadhi, and this Gadhi had a daughter called Satyavati. He got his daughter Satyavati married to another sage. This sage's name was Richika. So this great Kshatriya king Gadhi got his daughter Satyavati married to a sage Richika. So Satyavati and her mother, that is Gadhi's wife, both of them desired a son. So they sought the help of Satyavati's husband, a sage by himself called Richika. Richika said, let us perform a Mahayajna, and by the end of it, there will be a kalash, there will be a pot filled with the holy water, one for you, my wife Satyavati, and one for Gadhi's wife, who is my mother-in-law. So both of you have to consume that water. So they performed that yajna, they left these two pots, and even before Richika could tell, hey Satyavati, this is your pot, and hey mother-in-law, this is your pot, he had just gone out, and in that meantime, Gadhi's wife told her daughter Satyavati, why don't we consume this water now? Satyavati said, let's wait for my husband Richika to come, he will direct us. But she said, no, there's nothing to direct, we know these are the pots. So what Satyavati did was, she consumed the water from the pot which was meant for her mother, and her mother consumed the pot which was meant for her. Satyavati, though born as a Kshatriya lady, was married to a Brahman who was called Richik, whereas Gadhi's wife was still a Kshatriya lady. So the pot which was meant for a Brahmin lady was consumed by the Kshatriya's wife, and the pot which was meant for the Kshatriya's wife was consumed by the Brahmana's wife. Where the Brahmin, the great sage Richika, came, he was surprised to see what had happened. So he said, you have been very hasty in taking this decision even in my absence. So you should have waited for me to come and decided, but nevertheless, if it has to happen, it will happen. Since you have consumed, he tells his mother-in-law, since you have consumed the pot which was meant for a Brahmin, you will have a son who will be born as a Kshatriya, but later will live like a Brahmin. He will lead the life of a Brahmin and he will turn into a Brahmin. Whereas he tells his wife Satyavati, since you have consumed the pot that was meant for a Kshatriya lady, you will have a son who will be born as a Brahmin but will live like a Kshatriya. So she said, you are my husband, you are the person with great Vedic power, and you have the power to change the curse. So please excuse me from this. So he said, I can never take back my curse. But now I can make a little change, modification in your curse. You have consumed the pot that was meant for a Kshatriya lady, though you were supposed to consume the pot that was meant for a Brahmin lady. So you shall not be blessed with a son who will lead the life of a Kshatriya. But Instead, your grandson will be born as a Brahmin and will lead the life of a Kshatriya. Now guess who's who? Satyavati's son was a great sage called as Jamadagni. And to Jamadagni was born the great Amshavatar, Aveshyavatar of Vishnu called as Parashuram. He was born as a Brahmin, but he always used to go around with his Parashu. Hence, he was called Parashuram or Bhargavaram, and he led the life of a Kshatriya. On the other hand, Gadhi's wife, who had consumed the water that was meant for a Brahmin, had a son who was born as a Kshatriya, who was called Kaushik, who was Vishwamitra, but later he became a sage and he led the life of a Brahmin. So, though he was born as a Kshatriya, he led the life of a Brahmin, who? Vishwamitra. Though he was born as a Brahmin, he led the life of a Kshatriya, who was none but Parashuram. So, we are going to see the life history of Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra was born. He was a great king, and while he was a king, one day he visited the ashram of his family priest called as Vasishtha. In Vasishtha Muni's ashram, he took all his sainyam, his army, and his army was fed with the best of the food. He was surprised. He was surprised that in a Rishi's ashram, I am getting the best of the food. And Rishi, who is a Brahmin, is supposed to be very poor. How can this Rishi give us food of different tastes, different varieties? There were 40, 50 varieties in each dish. He was surprised. And that ashram could serve food for thousands of people, because there is a count of army called as Akshauhini, which says it has 21,000 and so many chariots, so many horses, so many warriors and so many chariots and so on and so forth. So when we speak of such a big Akshauhini Sainyam, so he was surprised how a Rishi who is a Brahmin could feed for so many people. So he went and asked, "Hey Vasishtha Rishi, how could you feed for so many people like us, and how could you feed with so many varieties?" At that point of time, Vasishtha said, "I have got a wish-yielding cow called as Shabala, and she can give different kinds of wealth. She can give all that a person can ask for. So it is through that wish-yielding cow called as Shabala that I was able to provide you and your entire army with different varieties of food." So, while Vishwamitra, who was then Kaushik Maharaj, he heard these words of Vasishtha, he had the feeling that why should such a divine wish-yielding cow called Shabala be with a poor Brahmin? It should be with kings like us. Like how the governments say these days that temples should be entrusted with them. Probably at that point of time, he was the government, he was the administrator. He said that I should take care of this, and he said, "Vasishtha Muni, why don't you give the Shabala to me?" Vasishtha said, "I have been blessed with Shabala, and she is helping all us, the Brahmins, in performing our daily sacrifices and yajnas. So how can I give that Shabala to you? You are a king, you are a person of great riches. Why don't you live with your comforts? Why do you have to interfere in what wealth we have?" When Vishwamitra heard this, he was quite surprised. He said, "In that case, I need to fight with you. If you are not giving a certain property that the Kshatriya king is asking, you need to be fought. So let me fight with you." And he started fighting, and he miserably lost in the battle with Vasishtha. So what did he do next? He immediately wanted to seek divine missiles, and he went further and performed a penance towards Lord Shiv. Lord Shiv appeared and asked, "What do you want?" Vishwamitra said, "Yedi tushto Mahadeva, if you're happy, hey Mahadev, Dhanurvedo mama anagha, give me the flawless art of archery, Dhanurved. Sangopangopanishadaha sa rahasyaha pradiyatam, give me the knowledge of all the mantras that are associated in making all the shastras into astras. Please give me that knowledge." And he blessed him with the highest knowledge of Brahmastram. He went all the way to the ashram of Vasishtha with Brahmastram, and he said, "Hey Vasishtha, get out of your ashram, and it is high time that both of us fight. Let's go for a combat and see who wins this war." He had the feeling that he had the best of the astras called as Brahmastram, and that poor Brahmin Vasishtha will not have any. So he said, "Vasishtha, come out, let's fight." Vasishtha came out with a certain thing in his hand, and that was that little object in his hand which helped Vasishtha win and Vishwamitra had to lose. But we need to check what Vasishtha had in his hand to make Vishwamitra lose in the next episode. Let's wait for the next episode. Thank you.